Mind if one needs real quick.
Right, good morning, everyone. Back to Shmuel Bet. We left off 2 weeks ago at a juncture where David was bringing back the Ark, the Aron HaKodesh, which had been languishing outside of the Mishkan for a period of time. And he decided it was time to bring it back. And what happened then, we saw at the end of last time's shiur, they got a cart and they put it on the cart, and these two fellows, Uzzah and Achio, who were the sons of Avinadav, started to drive the new cart, and that's where we left it. Okay. Let me share the screen with you. There you go. Sorry it's taking so long. It's my computer is definitely not well. Needs to go to hospital, I think. Can you see it yet?
No, not yet. Still slowly. You need to put everybody on mute as well. There's a lot of background noise.
Can I ask something while we're waiting?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm just getting my breakfast together. I'm reading a historical novel about David. And it's supposed to be factually true in terms of the Torah. And there they say that Mephibosheth, Shaul's younger son that didn't get killed, was only 14 at the time of the war. And that was the reason that he wasn't with all the troops, because he was still a child. That's all, just a comment.
Okay, that's a bit difficult, isn't it? Because we learned that he became lame when his nurse dropped him when she was running away.
Yeah, he was about 5, it said then.
Yes, so she wouldn't be carrying him if he was 14. So there seems to be some difference of opinion there as to his age. But either way, that's why he wasn't in the war. Whether he was 5 or he was 14, he was still too young. Right.
And
yeah,
he was lame.
Well, he was lame. When was he lame? Was he lame before the war, or was he lame when they were running away from the war?
I don't know. It just struck me as interesting because the other things are all pretty much the way we're learning them.
Yeah. So there must be some source for that. Let's carry on where we're up to. Can you see the screen now? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. Okay. So now then, where did we get to? And they brought, verse 4, and they brought it out of the house of Avinadav, which was on the hill with the ark of God, and Achio went before the ark. Now, verse 5, this is an important verse, and we'll see why a bit later on. Verse 5, David v'chol Beit Israel mesachakim lifnei Hashem. And David and the house of Israel, mesachakim. That's a familiar word, yeah? What does that mean? What's a mischak?
Game.
A game, yeah. So mesachakim, they were playing games. They were making merry, it says over here. They made merry. So Lifnei Hashem. Now, how were they doing it? Listen to this. B'chol atzei v'roshim. All sorts of instruments made out of brosh. What is brosh? It's a type of wood, cypress wood. Uvachinorot. You know what a kinor is? What's a kinor? Anyone?
A violin.
Fiddle on the roof.
Yeah,
What is a violin?
in biblical Hebrew, kinor is a harp.
A harp. Yeah.
Yeah. Uvinavalim. So navalim. What's navalim? Navalim is translated here as
The violin is a lyre.
It's translated here as a Psalteries.
What?
How do you pronounce that word?
Say it again. Spell it again.
Saltire.
Lyre. A
Salt-
lyre.
Not a lie. How do you pronounce that word that I blued out on the screen?
Saltire.
Saltire, says Barbara. Okay.
It's
Now,
like
well,
a song.
So the first thing to notice is that the P is silent. And so I thought it was pronounced saltery, but apparently not. Apparently it's pronounced sortery, as if it was spelt Sawtery. Anyway, what is it? Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's that. Can you see the screen? Yeah, it's that. That's a sortery, and it's another kind of plucking instruments, isn't it? You can see all the strings are over here. It looks very complicated. Anyway, that is a sortery, apparently, and so they had those as well. And then tufim, that's drums of some type. Timbrels, that's drums. And now this is an interesting word. Uvimna'anaim. Uvimna'anaim. This is the only place in Tanakh where this word is used for a musical instrument.
Moaning.
What does
moaning?
it? What do we do? What is the Hebrew word? What is the Hebrew word for what we do with our lulav and etrog on Sukkot? Anyone know the Hebrew word for that?
Lenanea.
Lena'anea, correct.
Doesn't it mean
wave.
to moan? To moan?
To wave.
No, to shake. Yeah.
To shake, that's right. So this is a shaking instrument. Uvim na'anaim. It's a shaking instrument. It's the only place in Tanakh where this word is mentioned. It's a shaking instrument. And it's translated. It's not castanets. No, Michael. Let me show you what it is. It's translated here as sistra. There you go, sistra. So, of course, I looked up what is sistra. And there is a sistra. Can you see it? This one on the left-hand side over here is a sistra. It's a sistra. Now, I want to show you this picture here. Can you see this picture over here on the right-hand side? Yeah. Now, that picture is in... You can't really see it very well, I don't think. Can you see that? It's in this Koren book here. You can't really see it. It's not really... Yeah, there you go. You can see the Koren Tanakh of the land of Israel, yeah? So if I open it to the right page there, you can't see it. I can't really show it you. There it is. You can see it there. Can you see it now?
What are we looking at?
This picture here.
No, but what he's holding in his hand.
Yeah, what he's holding in his hand over here.
Mm.
And that picture is on the screen for you now. And what he's holding in his hand is this thing here on the top left-hand side, this black thing. There you go. I made a big picture of it on the screen now. Can you see it?
Mm.
That is the picture, and you can just see to the left-hand side there, where it's sort of at 7 o'clock. That's the picture that's in the Koran, and he's holding one of these things. This is from some Egyptology thing, and that is a na'anim. That is a sistra, and it's an early form of graga. It's an early form of graga. But what's interesting is that this is the only place in Tanakh where this word is mentioned. And the next one, v'tzeltzelim. Tzeltzelim, that is an onomatopoeic
to
word.
ring,
They're
to
bells.
ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
What-
tell. It's to ring.
The tzeltzel is to ring. So
Yeah.
it's some kind of bells. Well, they are actually these things. Symbols.
Symbols.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Symbols. Who knew? Anybody know anything about symbols?
No.
Apparently, they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and weights and all sorts. All these, you can buy all sorts of different types of symbols. But anyway, that's what tzeltzelim is, the same word as letzeltzel, to ring, because when you crash the symbols together, that's what you get. Now, the point about this, why am I going on all about this, apart from the interesting words, is that there was a big fuss going on back now. They're bringing this ark from the house of Avinadav on this cart, and there's a big tumult going on. They're singing and they're dancing and they're playing instruments. And what happens when you get a bit carried away with yourself, when you are making merry?
You have accidents.
You have accidents, correct. And that's exactly what happened. You have accidents. And it's not a coincidence that they had an accident, because they were not behaving with sufficient reverence. Let's use that word. They weren't behaving with sufficient reverence. And we'll see later on, because later on they make a second attempt at doing this. It's all very different. Now, if you remember 2 weeks ago, we decided, we worked out that actually this whole thing was problematic, because how are you meant to carry the ark? I think
Through
you
the
told us,
poles.
Michael.
The
Yes,
poles.
on the poles, not on a cart, on the poles, on somebody's shoulders, right? And whose shoulders?
One of the Kohanim from Kehat.
One of the Leviim from Kahat, not Kohanim. The Leviim, not the Kohanim. So yes,
Sorry.
from Kahat. So this ark was put on a cart and was carried on the cart by non-Leviim. So the whole thing was problematic to start with. And then verse 5 came along, and they were making all merry and playing all these instruments and carrying on with themselves. And then what happened? Verse 6. Vayavo ad Goren Nachon. They came to Goren Nachon. What's Goren? What's the Goren?
Is it a
Wheat
vineyard?
storage.
You should know
Wheat
this.
storage.
Oh, yes, it's a wheat
Yeah, it's a threshing floor.
threshing floor.
Yeah. Came to the threshing floor of Nachon. It's a place. And we'll show you where it is in a minute. Vayishlach Uzzah el Aaron. And Uzzah sent out something. And you can see in brackets it says his hand. He sent out his hand. El Aaron Elohim, and to the ark of God. Vayochaz bo. And he grasped hold of it. Ki shamtu habakar, because the cattle that were pulling the cart, shamtu, they stumbled. So what's the implication here? Is that the cart is being pulled by oxen who stumble to the ground a bit, or stumble a bit on something, and the ark is what?
Tipping.
tipping. It's going to fall off. So what would a normal person do?
Support it.
Support it. Yeah, you'd put out your hands and stop it from falling. And that's what Uzzah did. That seems reasonable to me, no? What would you have done? Let it fall on the ground? I wouldn't. Anyway, God didn't like it. Look at verse 7. Vayicha af Hashem be'Uzzah. And the anger of God was kindled against Uzzah. Vayikehu shama Elohim. And God struck him down there. Where's it gone? My computer screen's playing up crazy here. Sorry about this. This computer is not behaving. So the words are moving all over the place. And I want to show you this word. Right, stop, computer. Don't move. Verse 7. Vayikaheyu sham Elohim al hashal. And God struck him down there. Al hashal. Translated here as for his error. Who's got a different translation? Who's got an art scroll?
I've got an art scroll, but it's not open. Just a minute.
Michael, have you got your living nach?
Yeah, it says suddenly.
Suddenly. Okay, what does it say in verse 7? Can you read verse 7 for us?
And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and God struck him down there for his error, and then he died by the ark of God.
So for his error. So the nach uses the word error to describe this word shall over here. Al hashal. Art scroll, anyone?
I'm just opening it.
Chapter 6, verse 7.
Verse 6. Hang on. Verse 7. Hashem became angry at Uzzah, and God struck him there for the blunder.
Blunder. Okay, it's the same thing. Koren says for his impudence. Now, the reason I'm making a fuss about this is this word shall is a very unusual word. If we look at the corresponding verses in Divrei Hayamim, in Chronicles, which tell the same story, we'll see something different. We'll see something different. We don't see the word shall. What we see is, look at verse 10 on the screen for you. Vayicha af Hashem be'Uzzah, vayakehu al asher shalach yado. Can you see that? Really interesting. Divrei Hayamim almost, as it were, completes the word that seems to be half missing in Shmuel Aleph, in Shmuel Bet, sorry. There it is in Shmuel Bet. Shall, verse 7 over here, shall, which is a very unusual word. And the corresponding thing in Divrei Hayamim is shalach. There it is. So
How does the Torah spell shalet raglecha, shalet nalecha, shalet raglecha ki, because the place where you're standing is holy.
Yeah, the same way. The same way. Shall means to take off your shoe there. Correct.
So
how you get to an error or a blunder from that, I'm not sure. But it's an interesting thing that Divrei Hayamim use the word shalach. So not quite sure what this word in Shmuel shall means, but it's described by all the translators as for his error. Vayamot sham im Aron Elohim, and he died there with the ark of God. Now, if you were David, how would you feel about all that?
Upset,
Upset, yes. What else?
anger.
Anger. Why would he be angry?
Well, either he's angry at God or he's angry because he didn't treat the ark properly.
So he's angry with himself, maybe.
Yeah.
I think you're right, because look at the next verse. Vayichal David al asher paratz Hashem peretz be'Uzzah. He's angry with God to start with. Absolutely right, Michael. David was angered because the Lord had made a breach upon Uzzah. He was angry with God, saying, it's not fair. Why did you do that to Uzzah? Now, there is another opinion as to what happened here. The standard thoughts and the simple pshat is that the oxen tripped up over something and the ark was about to fall and Uzzah stopped it from falling. That's what we said before, and that's the general pshat. There's another explanation that Uzzah tripped. Doesn't say it in the pasuk, but the Mefarshim say that Uzzah himself tripped, and in order to stop himself from falling, he stretched out his hands and grabbed hold of the ark to support himself. Now that would be a bit more naughty.
No, but
right?
it's a natural reaction.
I understand.
Johnny.
I understand. I'm just telling you.
I think this is the same thing. This is the same story as Nadav and Avihu.
Okay, hold that thought, Philip. Hold
Yeah.
that thought. Coming back to Nadav and Avihu. Coming back to that. But I agree with you, Philip. It's harsh. It seems harsh. And David was angry about this. Okay, and he called the place Peretz Uzzah Adayom Hazeh. And then after he thought about it, Michael, after you'd finished being angry, if you're King David, then what?
Then he realized that it was his fault, most probably.
Yeah, it probably was his fault, because what did he think about then? He thought, hang on a minute. Maybe we've not done this right. And look at the next verse, verse 9. Vayira David et Adonai bayom hahu. And David was afraid of Hashem on that day. Now, when it says bayom hahu, he was afraid on that day, what does that imply?
Hashem was angry at him.
Possibly. Paul, you're muted. I saw your lips
just
moving.
said he wasn't afraid at other times.
Well, he wasn't as afraid at other times, perhaps. Yeah, I don't think you would like to say that he wasn't afraid at all. But you're right. The implication is that on that particular day, he was especially afraid of Hashem, not surprisingly, because Uzzah, who at worst has done a natural reaction to save himself from falling, and at best tried to stop the ark from falling, has just been killed. So he's scared stiff now. Now, I want to just show you Bayom Hahu. We've had that bit of Bayom Hahu before. And it's over here in Shmuel Bet Chapter 3. In Shmuel Bet Chapter 3, we have Bayom Hahu again. And it's when David goes out of his way to show that he had nothing to do with Avner's death. Remember, Yoav killed Avner. David was not happy about it, and he had to go out of his way to show the people that he, David, was mourning Avner. Remember that? So, if you look at verse 37 on the screen from chapter 3, V'yedu kol ha'am v'kol Yisrael bayom hahu ki lo hayta me'amelech lahamit et Avner ben Ner. The people and all of Israel knew on that day that it was not the king who'd put to death Avner. So after David had gone out of his way, on that particular day, the people were convinced. So going back to our chapter now, it was on that particular day, verse 9, David was afraid of Hashem on that day, and he's now wondering if he's done it all wrong to start with, as Michael said. And he asks a question. He asks a question, really, it's a rhetorical question. Eich yavo Elai Aron Adonai. How can the ark of Hashem come to me? How can I get it to me? I've obviously done it wrong this time. I need to think about it. Need to think about what do you do when you have a national disaster? Eventually, you have a national inquiry, right? This was a national disaster. The Aron of Hashem was meant to come to Jerusalem in a fanfare, and it all went wrong. And Uzzah died. So you need to have a national inquiry. And that's what David does. It's exactly what David does. He says, I don't know how to do this now. So, Lo avad David la'asir elav et Aron Hashem al ir David. He didn't want to bring it because he didn't know how to do it. So what did he do? Vayitehu David bet Oved Edom ha-Giti. He took it aside to the house of Oved Edom, the Gittite. Now, presumably that was close by where this whole thing had happened. He's just going to put it aside, the nearest place he can find which is suitable. Now, it turns out, well, let's first of all have a look. Where did all this happen? Well, we know where it happened. It happened at verse 6. And they came to Goren Nachon. They came to the threshing floor of Nachon. So, let's try and find out, work out where this place is. Where was the ark coming from?
Gaza.
Kiryat Yarim.
Who said Gaza?
I did.
Wrong.
Kiryat Yarim.
I mean, okay, the Philistines.
It had come from Gaza and the Philistines way, way back. That was when they all got hemorrhoids, remember?
Yeah.
And there, where did it go after it came back from the Philistines?
Nashon.
Go on, I think
Kiryat
Hannah
Yarim.
said it. Kiryat Yarim. Why does Hannah know that so well? Shall I tell
Her
you?
daughter lives
Because
there.
her daughter lives there. That's right. She knows Kiryat Yarim. So Kiryat Yarim, otherwise known as Tellstone, is where the Aaron was living for all this time. And where's it going on this journey now? Ir David. So we know that Nachon must be somewhere between Kiryat Yarim and Jerusalem. Let's have a look at the map. This stupid computer will behave itself. Can you see the map?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
Yes, it's in the corner. Yeah.
Is it on the screen?
It's fully on the
Yes.
screen.
Right, good. Okay, over here, you can see Abu Ghosh, yeah?
Yep.
And there below Abu Ghosh is Kiryat Yearim. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, that's Kiryat Yearim. Over here, to the right-hand side, i.e. to the east, is Jerusalem. So the Goren Nachon must be somewhere between those 2 points on that east-west axis. Now, somebody has worked out, I can't remember exactly now who it was. Who was it? Megadim, I think it was. Hang on, let me just look it up. Yeah, Ehrlich wrote in Megadim, don't know who Zed Ehrlich is, but Zed Ehrlich wrote in Megadim, worked it out from the various different things, that Goren Nachon is over here at a place called Ketef Chinom. And I reckon that you've all been there. Who has been, well, let me just scroll in a little bit to here. Can you see where it is? This Ketef Chimon. There we go. That's what I wanted to show you. Who has been to the
Oh.
Menachem Begin Heritage
Yes.
Centre?
Me.
Me too. I've been a few times. It is a fabulous place. Anybody not been there, you need to go. It's fabulous. Anyway, It's right by there. If you can picture where the Begin Heritage Centre is, it's just on the right hand side of a hill going up. If you're going up the hill, it's on the right hand side. And just on that complex is where this Ehrlich has worked out that Nachon Goren Nachon was. And so if I scroll back out of the map, you can see it's come a long way from Kiryat Yearim before it started to fall. It wasn't just, very, very soon after the journey began. It's almost got to its destination. It's almost at Ir David. Where is Ir David? Ir David's over here, right? That's where Ir David is. It's almost there. And that's when it starts to fall and this disaster happens. So next time you go to the Begin Museum, you can think about the Ark of Hashem. Right, so presumably...
Can I ask a question here?
One sec. Let me just finish this thought. David says, I can't risk taking it any further. He puts it in the house of Oved Edom, the Gittite. What's a Gittite? And who was Oved Edom? Well, I'll tell you who Oved Edom was. It's in Divrei Hayamim. It tells us who he was. This is the Divrei Hayamim telling us the story of the second attempt to bring the ark back. Okay, and you'll see in a moment that it was the Levium that did it. Can't just find it right now. Anyway, it turns out that Oved, there we go, there it is, verse 18, the bottom of your screen there. And with them their brethren, this is the Levites. Verse 17, the Levites stationed Himan, the son of Joel, blah, 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 all these Levites, and with them their brethren, i.e. Levites. And amongst the Levites mentioned is Oved Edom. Can you see that right at the bottom of the screen? So that's David's first correction. His first correction is to place the ark while he's making his inquiries into the house of a Levi. Okay, so that's good. Now, Philip mentioned before Nadav and Avihu. Who was Nadav and Avihu, Philip?
Sons of Aaron.
Sons of Aaron. Yeah, Philip, can you unmute?
They were the sons of a Kohen Gadol, Aaron, and they brought strange fire, foreign fire, to the Mishkan. And they were also they also died. They were also punished by Hakadosh Baruch Hu.
Correct, and there it is on the screen for you. Parashat Shmini.
Yeah.
Sefer Vayikra. Aaron's sons Nadav and Avihu each took his pan, put fire in them, placed incense upon it, and they brought before the Lord foreign fire, which he had not commanded them. And as we know, they got killed. Now, there's a connection there, as Philip pointed out. Here, in our chapter, this Uzzah and Ochia are doing a service. They're bringing the Aron Kodesh back to Yerushalayim, or to Yerushalayim from where it was. And they were dancing and singing and carrying on with themselves, and too much.
Both cases, Johnny, both cases were maybe a sign of a lack of faith. That's all. But
I don't think a lack of faith. I don't think faith's the right word. A lack of reverence. Definitely a lack of reverence.
No, I think trust, faith.
One sec. Barbara first, and then Hannah.
I think it was a lack of faith.
Barbara?
No, not me. I didn't have any.
No. Okay, Hannah.
We just read Parashat Bamidbar. And in Parashat Bamidbar, it says that Aharon and his sons shall finish covering the holy and all the holy utensils when the camp journeys, when the sons of Kohath shall come to carry, and so they not touch the holy and die. And God is telling people, us, that you don't touch it because you'll die. And here he's gone and touched it, and God doesn't qualify under what circumstances you're not to touch it. You're just not to touch it. And that's
You're
not the
absolutely
same
right.
as Nadav and Avihu. Nadav and Avihu did something off their own bat that nobody had said do or don't do. Here, there's a directive that you're not to touch it.
Well, okay, let's just unpack what you've said. First thing is, you're absolutely right that the Bamidbar tells them they're not allowed to touch it. It goes further than that. If you look further on, it shows you, it says in Parashat Bamidbar, they're not even allowed to look at it whilst it's being unpacked, right? So
it's got to be covered. So I'm making the assumption that it was covered. Yeah, so that wasn't relevant because it was covered.
You're right. You're right, Hannah. That there was an explicit instruction not to touch it, and Uzzah touched it. I think there is a similarity between Nadav and Avihu. It's not exactly the same, because one of the Mefarshim on Nadav and Avihu tell us that they went into the Kodesh Kodashim, which they weren't allowed to do, and they were told specifically not to do that. So, and I was the reason I was pleased that Philip brought up Nadav and Avihu is I want to just show you something in our chapter. Have a look at, if I can just scroll down a wee bit, this computer that's playing up. There we go. Have a look at verse 4. Vayisauhu mi beit Avinadav. Avinadav. What does that sound like? Nadav and Avihu. Try saying it the other way around. Avihu Nadav. Avinadav. It's the same name. It's the same name. The father, I think he was the father of these two folk, of Uzzah. I think it says so earlier on.
Hang on, Avinadav was Aaron.
Say that again, Paul.
Avinadav was Aaron, I said.
Avinadav was Aaron. What do you mean? Oh, Avinadav, right. No, I'm saying Nadav and Avihu. Nadav and Avihu were the two sons that were killed, right? Say their names in a different order. Avihu, Nadav. You get the very, very similar name to this chap here called Avinadav. Okay, it may be nothing other than a coincidence, but we don't believe in coincidences in names anyway. And of course, wait a minute. And of course, names get changed all over the place in Tanakh. It's just that it's worth pointing out that there is a parallel between the story of Nadav and Avihu and this chap's name, Avinadav, may just be a hint towards that. Okay, nothing more than that.
I think it's am I allowed to say that I think it's a bit schwach?
You can say whatever you like, Hannah.
Johnny, where is Avinadav mentioned just now? Which pasuk?
In verses 3 and 4.
Verse 3 and verse 4.
Thanks.
Avinadav was the father of Uzzah and Achio. So they weren't Leviim. They weren't from the tribe of Levi. So it may well be Shvach, but it's just something which has been pointed out, and so I thought it was worth passing on. Okay.
I've got a little bit of a difficulty there because how did they get the if Uzzah got killed because he touched the ark? how did they transport the ark from the house onto the cart, and at the other end take it off at the other end? Because
I'm assuming that they carried it on poles.
so why then did they put it on the cart without the poles? Why did they put it on the cart in the first?
It might have been on the cart with the poles. Only you're not meant to put it on a cart. You're meant to put it on your shoulders. You're right, Michael. This when Uzzah touched the thing in verse 6, that must be the first time they touched it. Otherwise, he'd have got killed earlier, wouldn't he? That's what you're saying, isn't it?
It was. I find it a little bit strange, therefore, that they would do it right when they removed it from the house. They did it right. They did it on the poles, and instead of continuing to carry it, they stuck it on the cart. And they did the same in reverse when they took it off the cart and put it in the house later on after the death.
I think that's what they did. They messed up. They messed up. They put it on poles, but instead of carrying it all the way from Kiryat Yearim, they thought, oh, this is a bit heavy. We'll stick it on a cart. And then when the stumbling happened, Uzzah instinctively, as Philip said, touched the actual ark. And that's when it all went wrong. And that's what made David, who had by this time been making too much merry, realize that he hadn't done it right.
Also, I go with that because the way from Kiryat Yearim to Jerusalem has a very steep incline. You're like really going up a mountain and down a mountain and up a mountain and down a mountain. And maybe people just thought it would be easier to carry it on a cart than it would to carry it on their shoulders, what with it being very heavy and everything.
You're absolutely right. I've broken down on that hill more than once.
So have we.
When I first came here, I had a very old rubbishy car that I just got for the kids when they were sort of here, and it just couldn't make that hill. Couldn't do it. Conked out on more than one occasion. Right. So
can I ask a question?
Yes.
Why David became angry with Hashem, it says.
Yeah.
But surely he should have realized that he'd done something wrong also. He should have apologized, surely.
I think he did in verse 9. I think his first reaction, and this is David, isn't it? David's got a short fuse. We know that.
But he also says,
cousin. The whole family had a short fuse. Yoav, Asael.
Yeah. They've got a short fuse. David's got a short fuse as well. And he gets angry. And then he thinks about it in verse 9, Barbara. And he says, oh, I don't know how to do this now. How can the ark of the Lord come to me? So I think that's right. He does get angry against Hashem. That's his first reaction. And then I think he rose back from that. He then stops and thinks about it. And then in verse 10, he puts it aside in the Levi's house to decide. And it was there for 3 months in the Levi's house, there in Oved Edom's house. It was in there for 3 months. Okay. And so during that 3 months, what happened? Well, we see what happened in verse 11. Verse 11 says, Vayeshev Aaron Hashem Beit Oved Edom Hagiti. Oh, by the way, we never answered the question, what's a Gitti? Well, we know he's not a Gittite, whoever they are, because we do know that he's a Levi. So he can't be a Gittite. So the rabbis asked that question and say he was a Levi. Why is he being described as a Gittite? And they come up with an answer which is a bit shvach, if you ask me, and that is that he lived in the territory of the Gittites, but obviously he wasn't a Gittite, he was a Levi. I think that's a bit shvach, but there you go. So
well, we also say Eliyahu Agiladi. And they relate that to Eliyahu coming from Gilad.
Okay, all right. I'm convinced. Yes, Hannah, I'll buy that.
Who,
I'll
who
buy
were
that.
who were the Gittites? You didn't say. You said that he wasn't one, but who were they?
It was an area of, I don't know, wherever they were, like Hittites and probably the Hittim, probably, because Chet and Gimel are one of those interchangeable guttural letters. So probably a Hittite. So in the area of the Hittites, but he wasn't a Hittite or a Gittite. He was a Levi. But he did very well out of this. Look at verse 11. Vayeshev Aaron Hashem Beit Oved Edom Agiti Shlosha Chodashim. It stayed there for 3 months. Vayevarech Hashem et Oved Edom vet kol beito. And he got blessed for it, for looking after the ark. Presumably, he behaved in an appropriate manner, didn't touch it, behaved with reverence towards it, etc. And Hashem blessed him for it. Verse 12.
Steinzelt says because the business died, there weren't enough Kohanim around to deal with it, so that's why we second-rate Levium got the job.
Say that again, Paul,
He
please.
says because there were Kohanim a lot of Kohanim were wiped out, there weren't enough of them to do the job of looking after the Aron Kodesh, so that's why we Levium had the job.
So he's saying that Lechatchila, it should have been the Kohanim that looked after it, not the Levim. Why? Because the Torah tells us that it was the job of Kahat to carry it. I don't understand that, Steinzart, actually.
The Torah says the Leviim.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Carrying is one thing, but looking after it once it's reached the destination is another thing.
Oh, I see. I see what you're saying. Okay, because actually, when it you reached this final destination, it was in the Bet HaMikdash, which is the domain of the Kohanim. That's what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. Where were all the Kohanim then? They'd all been killed in Nov.
You know, I thought about that, and they couldn't have all been killed in Nov.
Well,
Because
they weren't all killed in Nov, but a lot of them were killed in
Yeah.
Nov, weren't they?
But also, we learn that the Kohanim are spread out all over the country because people give them their masrot and they get called to Miluim from wherever they are. If they were all in one place, then the setup would be different. Possibly the Kohanim were a bit like the Leviim in that they lived in the 42 towns of Eretz Israel. And because I was also thinking that when we did the section where Shaul kills all the Kohanim in Nov, so who's left around? So who's left to work in the temple?
Well,
But-
at that time, one of the suggestions was actually the Mishkan was in Nov.
But even
That's-
so, you
that's where
needed
they all were.
you eventually needed Kohanim to work in the temple. And where did they come from if they were all killed in Nov?
No, they weren't
So they
all
must
killed.
have been. I would imagine they were spread out all over the country, just the
imagine there
same
were
as the
some-
Leviim were.
I imagine there was some here and there, but I suspect that most of them lived in the vicinity of the Mishkan or the temple, because they had watches. They had 24 watches. They had 24 sections, and they took turns for it. So I imagine they all lived fairly close by wherever the Mishkan was or wherever the temple was. I imagine so. Let's carry on.
2 weeks at a time. They came for 2 weeks at a time. So
but
while they
you-
were working
No,
there,
you're not going to just get on a bus. If you live in Netanya and you've got to go to Jerusalem for your 2 weeks, right? It's going to take you 2 weeks to get there. So they would all have lived in close proximity to their place where they had to work. We know that
Okay.
because we don't start saying Mashiv Ruach, do we? No, not Mashiv Ruach. We don't start saying B'tein Talu Matar until the 7th of Cheshvan to give people 2 weeks to get back from Jerusalem to where they go. So if it takes 2 weeks to get there, they're not gonna take 2 weeks to get there, be there for 2 weeks, and another 2 weeks to go home again, then it's time to come back. They'll be back and forwards all the time. They would have lived.
No, they came twice a year. So it's every 6 months.
Who says they came twice a year?
That's what I learned.
Not necessarily. The rota might have been different to that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Verse 12. Vayugad lamelech David. It was told to King David, Lamor, saying, Beirach Hashem et beit Oved Edom. The house of Oved Edom has been blessed. Bet kol asher lo bavo Aron Elohim, because of the ark. So what does David now think? I want to be blessed. I want the ark. If it brings blessing, I want it. So he now has another go. Vayelech David vayal et Aron Elohim mi beit Oved Edom ir David b'simcha. And so he goes and he brings it from Beit Oved with simcha, with joy. Now, how much joy? How much joy?
Well, evidently too much.
Well, not too much, because previously it was too much, wasn't it?
Yeah, so, wasn't his wife a little bit upset?
Yeah. We're coming to that. It's all about timing, Michael. It's all about timing. So the fact that the Tanakh here just says the word b'simcha, in contrast to all this business over here in verse 5 that we made a big fuss of before, with the sistra and the sorcery and the cymbals and the drums and the this and the that and the other. Too much. Here it's brought with simcha correctly, but with the amount of reverence that was due to it, which was missing before. Right? Restrained. That's right. Restrained. So we've corrected the 3 problems we had before. The 3 problems were: 1, it wasn't taken by Levium. This is corrected because this time it's come from the house of the Levium. Secondly, it was not put on a cart this time. Okay, it was carried. How do we know it was carried? Look at verse 13. Vayehi, and it was ki tza'adu nosei Aron Hashem. When those who were carrying the ark of Hashem had marched shishat tza'adim, 6 paces, vayizbach shor umari, they did an offering of an ox and a fatling. So from here we can see that there were people carrying it, so it wasn't on a cart. So that's 2 things we've corrected: Levium and the cart. And the 3rd thing was this amount of simcha, this restraint, the reverence that was due to the ark. So David HaMelech has done what we will see him do again when he sins with Bathsheba, which is what?
Teshuvah.
He corrects his mistakes. He realizes he's done a mistake and he corrects it. And that is the essence of the greatness of David HaMelech. And I've just told you my whole Tikkun Leil Shavuot lecture in 1 sentence now. So you don't need to come sit for an hour in the middle of the night and listen to me, because that's what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about the complexities of the character of David HaMelech. But the bottom line is, he's a man who accepts when he's made a mistake, and he does tshuva. Yes, Paul?
Well, it says he did dance with all his might, which is not the restraint that you mentioned, and his wife, I think, tells him off about it.
Correct, but that's afterwards. That is, you'll see. That's why I said it's all in the timing. That's why you're muted. I can't hear you now, Paul.
Didn't say anything further.
Oh, right. Oh, I think my computer is out of sync. I saw you. I heard you, and then I saw you, your lips moving. So we'll carry on, and you'll see. As they brought the ark up to the city of David, they did it with joy, but with restraint. Okay, and every 6 paces they're sacrificing, right? Which means that is reverence to Hashem, sacrificing then. Now, then you're quite right. David danced with all his might before the Lord, and David was girded with a linen ephod. Okay, and David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouting and the sound of the shofar. The shofar, not the cymbals, and not the timbrels, and the shmimbrels, and the psaltery, and all the other bits and bobs, right? Just the shofar. The shofar is what?
Holy.
Holy. Yeah. So there's
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What's the relevance of the linen ephod?
Coming to it. Who wore that? Oh, let's come to it right now. Who wore a linen ephod?
The Kohen Gadol.
A Kohen Gadol. David here is behaving as if he is the Kohen Gadol. And it's one of the things that Michal isn't happy about.
Yeah.
So let's carry on. And David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with the sound of shofar. Now then, 16. Vayechal David meha'alot ha'ola va'ashlamim. Oh no, I missed out. Sorry. Verse 16. V'haya Aron Hashem ba'ir David. And as the ark came into the city of David, umichal bat Shaul nishkafa ba'ad hachalon. Michal, the daughter of Shaul, was looking through the window. Vatera et hamelech David, and she saw King David. Mefazez umecharker lifnei Hashem, hopping and dancing. Vativez lo beliba, and she loathed him in her heart. Wow, this whole pasuk needs unpacking, and look at the time. So we're going to have to leave it there and go and talk about this really difficult and laden with innuendo and meaning and subplot pasuk for next time. Next time we will start with pasuk 16. What is this pasuk trying to teach us about Michal? What's going on here with Michal and David? And that is what we will do next time. Any questions on what we've done today? We managed to get the ark. We managed to get the ark at least back to Ir David in one piece, and we'll carry on next week. Any questions?
Not on what we've done today, but I can't remember. Johnny, do we say Yiska tomorrow?
We do.
We do, huh? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay. Chag Sameach, everybody.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Thank you, Johnny.